best opportunity available to be successful.
Where are you from? What state?
His best opportunity would be when the car's coming at him. Why would he wait for the car to turn and get all the way down here before he opens fire?
I asked.
We got a lady from Long Island.
Attorney coming down here. Oswald has more time. If he missed with the first shot, he missed. That car was straight.
No, it couldn't have. No, it couldn't have. People were lining the streets there. All the cars are right behind him. The car would have had to come down the same damn road. He'd have got the same shots anyway. Why wouldn't you take the easier ones? The ones where it's coming at you.
Right, it's directly at him.
As a sniper shooting, you got a shot here where the car is going away from him and dropping. That's the most difficult shot imaginable. With a target that's going down and away from you and dropping?
With a bolt-action rifle.
Come on.
The motorcade route also changed the morning of the motorcade.
In the interval of the shots, too.
Shots on top of each other. So Oswald didn't even know they were going to come down the street.
The point of the matter is, if you're in that window, you're going to take the shot where it comes down the street right at you.
I understand.
And then I had one bozo tell me, no, you wouldn't, because then they could look up and see the gun. No, they wouldn't. You open the window, you're back from the window, and the barrel's not even out the window. You could get 3 shots up there before coming at you, before they'd even know where the shots are.
You're a Navy SEAL. Do you think Oswald, if he would have been guilty, thought that logic?
Yeah, because he was right out of the Marine Corps. He hadn't been out of the Marine Corps in a couple of years.
1959, 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I've been out 30 and I still remember it.
You know,
wait a minute. I've been out 30 and I still remember it.
Jesse, you were a Navy SEAL. You're better trained. He was
you're telling me the Marines are not highly trained?
He was highly trained. I was in the Army.
He scored high on his marksmanship.
No, he was a marksman, which is middle.
Well, he was a sharpshooter.
Marksman's the lowest.
No, it's marksman, sharpshooter, expert.
Fired 212.
No, he was my marksman.
Barely made that.
He fired 212 sharpshooter.
Here's sharpshooter.
Yeah, sharpshooter. Camp Matthews said that right after
Plus he was eating lunch in the second floor lunchroom.
Well, then he was
the other
second. He
point.
said he was marksman, sharpshooter, expert.
Wait a minute now. You've just the second half of the shooting by a cop and the building manager. You could just blow away the president. The first thing in your mind is to run down to the second floor and have a coat.
On his way out. He ran out the front.
He didn't run out. He walked
out the front. I'm sure he said he should have ran out the back. If you're in an incident like that, where everybody's excited, you go out the front and it'd be less potential.
Like I said, he's the coolest customer I've ever seen. He has a Coke.
This is
isn't out of breath.
Things go better. In 1977, Bill O'Reilly was on Channel 8 Dallas, and he asked to speak to J. Walton Moore because he alleged that Lee Harvey Oswald was employed by the CIA. Now, why did the CIA create all these files? Because O'Reilly asked this question. I don't know either. Maybe O'Reilly will talk about them tonight.
And what's interesting is here's your other common sense point. If he's who they say he was, this disgruntled little Marine that hated capitalism, became a communist sympathizer, decided to kill the president, why would anything have to be put in the National Archives
our
because of
JFK
national
Lancer
security?
program
How could a
will commence
disgruntled
in just a
Marine
little
private affect
while.
our national
We
security
are going to
in any way,
have
shape, or
a
form?
very important speech.
Well, that tells you right there.
And we're
Jesus
going to have
Christ,
a countdown
why would they do that?
I don't
What
know.
they're telling us
I don't
is
know what
true,
those records are.
then why did they have to
There
lock
might have been an
everything
original
up?
concern about Castro. There might have been some of the stuff that came later on about the attempts to kill Castro by Kennedy.
And they thought of all that, huh?
They may have been concerned that was covered up. But Bobby Kennedy was very concerned also at the time. It was Bobby Kennedy supposedly and Washington said, let's hurry up with this autopsy because he concluded that it was done. He concluded that Oswald was the killer and said, let's go through this rather quickly. And
I'll put it to you this way: it's the Dallas PD should be pat on the back for the greatest piece of police work in the annals of history, because they have no one that saw him do it, right? Then supposedly he killed Tippit. Well, I find it interesting that they found 3 shell casings there, and Oswald had a revolver. Now, how did the shell casings get on the ground from a revolver? A revolver does not
I
expend
understand.
shell casing. So he must have, after shooting Tippett, he must have cleaned his weapon and left the casings there, you know, so that they could be found and traced to him. You know, that's certainly what I'd have done. If I'd have had a revolver, the first thing I'd have thought of is, hey, let me dump my casings by the body here. You know, I'm not going to walk off. Okay, now wait a minute now. Then you've had the murder of the president, you've had the murder of the police officer, and then a call comes in and says, you know what? This sinister-looking guy, he didn't they sent him to school. Every cop in Dallas. I'm saying that, excuse me, you're telling me they'd have even sent a cop when they had the murder of the president and a police officer gunned down in the street? Why would they be sending cops to this theater to get somebody who didn't buy a 30-cent ticket? And why did 10 Scars show up? And why was a description of Oswald put out immediately after the assassination that fit him perfect?
Well,
No one saw him shoot.
No, they took an attendance at the
No, they did. That's right up there at the museum.
Wait a minute, time out.
The museum is full of shit.
And wait a minute now. So you're telling me through all this chaos, one person is missing from at that work?
There are more.
And they put APBs out on all these people? No, they didn't. They put it out on one person. Why didn't they put it out on everybody that was missing there?
102 is a matter of fact, according to the
He
museum.
was the only one missing.
No, they said there were a few unaccounted for, but he was one of them. How many? They didn't say how many, but he was.
Well, then why would they send his description out if there were more people missing? Sure you do. Sure you do. Sure you do. Yes, you do.
They're getting to him,
Yes, you
Governor.
do. No, it's common sense. Common sense. View it from common sense. Nothing adds up with common logic. Don't add up. Don't add up.
So was he set up?
Well, let me put it to you this way. After he's arrested, let's say hypothetically he did do it. Why would he use the term patsy? Why would that word come out of it? When the press first said, and he turned and said, I'm just a patsy. If he did this alone, why would he use that term?
Well, I'm asking.
Governor, do you want to get up there for
involved.
the moment?
Yeah.
Silence.
Let's go.
Why would he use the term patsy? You know, why? To describe himself. And plus, if he did it, wouldn't he want the world to know? He did it for a cause. He would stand up and say, you're goddamn right I did it, because I'm a martyr.
Why did he come in with a package that morning? Why did he leave his ring at his wife's house?
$170.
Why did he
Take
have a
off the
wallet?
ring and
Why did
lose
he
the
have
money
a
there.
wallet?
Curtain rods were in that
Well,
package.
how about the guy who gave him the ride to work that said the gun wasn't in there and it didn't fit?
Right, because it wasn't big enough for a rifle.
What?
The rifle also that was found up there is 1,200 foot per second, low to medium.
Run and get for that governor.
I ain't running.
Yeah, we're at the president.
Could you get a picture of me and Jesse? You always tell me it's the last picture and you lie to me. Every time you lie to me. It's never the last.
I know.
Dang it. We're going to get up there.
Thank you so much. Governor Ventura, what's your interest in coming down here?
Same as yours.
Really? I thought maybe you had been here in Dallas during the time.
No, I flew down just for this.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Do it fast.
Right here. Okay. Thank you for all you do, Jesse. Thank you very much.
Yes. Kind of like. What do you mean? What is it? Yeah. What do you mean?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Does Ed believe that Oswald did it?
The governor of the Warren Commission didn't call one of those first guy witnesses.
At least there she did.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
His father was the law firm with Ed Clark from 66 to 78.
You think so? I'm sure.
And he says unequivocally Lyndon Baines Johnson killed President Kennedy. That's what Bar McClellan says. And he was in the law firm, and he said that Ed Clark, he was there when Clark got his $2 million payoff. He helped get it for him in the early 70s for doing the job.
Same
Gotta
as
read.
Ken.
Well,
Kept
he
him out-
also,
kept
well, he
Johnson
also
out of
says
jail.
in the book, he said there was an ATF agent that was killed years ago. They called it a suicide. In the 1980s, it was brought back up in front of the grand jury. They declared it a homicide. And Johnson, Clark, and Wallace were all indicted for murder, but they couldn't serve the indictment because they're all dead.
Do you think that's
So it wasn't like he hadn't killed before.
One of those 5 gunshot suicides, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the guy that did the schematic drawings for the Warren Commission, using only verbal testimony or verbal instructions from Humes and Boswell.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ed Tetcher. I'm a friend of Bar McClellan, and I'm the one who got him on the History Channel on the 3 hours that were.
You were on that, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm on it too. I was the chief consultant.
Oh, okay, with Bar McClellan?
Yeah.
I heard he's having trouble getting people to talk about his book and put him on the air. Is that true?
I wouldn't be surprised.
No,
but
I heard like Good Morning America canceled him and things like that. And they won't
Well, the
give
pressure's
him.
on with Valenti now because he tried to put an injunction on the 3rd hour. Now there's a little disclaimer before the guilty men, and but they're still running. And what the History Channel did, it was the 3rd hour. The first time it ran on Monday, but Friday they put it on at 8, which they knew was the most important one. And I think that's their way of kind of sticking it to Valenti. So I just want to personally thank you for having the courage to stand up here. But then I'm doing it too.
You are. You are.
But I've been doing it for 40 years.
Bruce Engelman, fellow researcher.
To me, it's just a case of, I was 12 years old, and I think I've been lied to. And
I was 16.
and so for me, it's a case of how can you believe history when you get a clear opportunity where they've lied?
Can I get a picture of it?
What else do they lie about?
He's ready to go. Everything's ready to go. Is it glowing?
Where are the signs?
Well, we're going to find out.
Okay. Good, I guess. Beyond the night at 6. There you
Why don't
go.
you try one more?
One more?
Yeah. might as
Rewind
well.
it for me there.
Well, if you see Barr, give him my best.
I will.
In fact, tell him I'd like to have him on again.
You should know, he called me Sunday and he wanted me to go with him to Washington, D.C. He wanted to call a press conference and demand a reinvestigation. He told me there was senatorial interest, and he wanted me to come with him because we're on the same page.
Just a little closer together.
And I couldn't go because I was giving a lecture at a military camp. I went for hours with Cyril Weck. But I'll keep in touch with him and I'll tell
Yeah,
you
well,
what's the rest of the
tell him I'd like to have him on again.
I'm writing a book. I've got about 1,100 pages in Canon. Nigel Trainer and I are going to keep going.
After the commemoration.
I love Nigel's work, except I don't fully buy the French.
Do you have any
thing.
card or anything?
No, I fully don't buy the French.
French Corsican.
Oh, I don't know. That's we're beyond that. If you haven't seen these 3 hours yet, he has.
Okay.
You've got to see the 3 new hours, and the 3rd hours is all on the Texas thing and Johnson.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
and all
It's
of
good,
that,
Governor.
Okay?
Is it?
Yeah.
Once you see that, then
Where do you get that now? Because I've got the original ones. How do you get these new ones?
maybe the History Channel will be selling it, but it's going to be on TV anyway. But check with the History Channel.
Give you this. I'm John Judge with the National Coalition on Political Assassination.
I saw that.
Yeah, did an excellent job. I appreciate your courage. Do you have a card on you, sir?
No, I try to stay low key. You know?
I don't blame you.
I've been
Did they stick on that historian because they're getting so much flack? I noticed on the episode last night, he came on and kind of gave a little disclaimer that this was just one theory.
Well, they did that because Jessica Valenti tried to put an injunction on it. So that must have been their way to...
Why was Valenti trying to do that?
You talking about Jack Valenti?
You and I will talk private about this.
Okay. I mean, I've met him.
Maybe he has a few skeletons of his own hiding.
Okay.
Maybe I have the documentation.
In fact, I met him with Schwarzenegger, if I remember right.
The thing with Barr is, and I think Barr would tell you this, if I go through with what I'm doing, we're a 1-2 punch. I go beyond where he went. I believe in him, but I go beyond.
But how do you go beyond?
40 years of research, Jesse. Well, if you're interested in talking to me, you talk to Barr and we'll set it up. Even private.
Could you stand between these two good-looking women for a minute? Just stand there. I mean, forget the conference for right now. This is something else.
Well, see, I don't want to turn me into a conference.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hey, I have my British trial on y'all.
I doubt it.
British trial.
Really?
Mark likes it.
Really?
So I know everybody's asking this, but why did you come down here today?
Because it's November the 22nd, 2003, 40 years to the exact minute that President Kennedy was murdered.
How old were you at the time?
12.
Tell me about how you heard the news.
Well, like all kids, we were in school at the time, and they announced over the loudspeaker that President Kennedy had been shot, and then they announced that he had been killed, and they told us that school was suspended and that we were to go home immediately. And that's basically what happened. Everyone very quietly, it was kind of a scary thing being a 12-year-old and seeing a president, or not seeing it, but hearing that a president was murdered.
And you did your show from here today?
What's that?
You did your show from here today? Or you just taped a segment?
No, I taped nothing here.
Oh.
I did my show Wednesday.
Oh.
It'll air today.
Okay. And what was your show focused on?
I have Beverly Oliver, I have Aubrey Reich, and I have Professor Fetzer from UMB, who's written 3 very good books. You familiar with Fetzer?
Yes, sir. And what's your feeling on what happened here?
Well, my feeling is simply that I don't believe the Warren Commission. I don't believe the government's perspective of it, and that's good enough, because if I don't believe that, then it doesn't matter whether I have a belief of what I think happened here. No one will ever know what happened here. I just don't believe what the government told us happened here happened.
Wondering how familiar you are with the area beyond this. Do you know who G.B. Dealey was? How the plaza got its name?
No.
And I heard you out there debating with somebody about the details of the conspiracy. You were talking about common sense. One common sense question I have people ask is, if the government had the ability to plan such an elaborate conspiracy, why would you have such an elaborate conspiracy in a public place?
Because that's the best place to do it.
I mean, why not have one person?
No, you got government and government ops, military ops, CIA ops, all of the operations you want to talk about, they're all compartmentalized. Very few people know the whole picture. Very few. Everybody just knows their little piece of the operation. I have a good friend of mine that didn't realize he was part of the Arms for Hostages in the 80s until he saw it break on television. And then he turned and looked at me and said, "Oh, gee, I was part of that." And he was on member of SEAL Team 6, the anti-terrorist unit. And he was given a job to deliver something from point A to point B. That's all he knew.
Right.
And then later on, he put 2 and 2 together and it made 4, and he put 4 and 4 together and it made 8. But at the point of doing the job, he had no idea. And that's what, and besides, why would someone come forward now to be called what, a kook? Who of the mainstream media and government is going to believe anybody? They've got their definition.
Right. Well, what I'm asking is, if you were part of the conspiracy, planning a conspiracy, why would you do it in a public place with photographs around? If you had that much power, wouldn't you plan a private location? Wouldn't you poison his food rather than shoot him in public where people are going to take pictures?
I don't know. I've never did it.
Don't you think it's
Why would you ask me that? I'm not a voice of experience on assassinations.
Well, because
I was never in the CIA.
I'm just wondering why everybody looks at it after the fact, but nobody ever questions the common sense before the fact.
Because, oh, you want common sense? What's Adolf Hitler's famous quote?
That if you tell a lie big enough, people will believe it.
The bigger the lie, the easier it is to sell.
But that
speaks volumes. How easy is it that they sold us here?
It doesn't seem very easy, given all the people.
I do. I think it's easy. It's 40 years. Nothing has changed. The government's position hasn't changed. We're all kooks.
So
we're all labeled.
Do you think there's any way to actually get the truth then?
Not really. Not anymore. No, you'll never. I don't think you'll ever get an admission that someone's going to admit. I think that one of the keys would be if they could get the psychiatrist records of that Bar McClellan talks about. Lyndon Johnson, at the very end of his life, apparently, like many people, had some problems before he went to meet his maker, and he had very heavy psychological sessions with a doctor who, of course, because of doctor-patient privileges, doesn't have to reveal anything. But as Bar McClellan said, if he could get those records, he believes Johnson confessed to it at that point in time. But again, that's only hearsay. Oh, it's programmed.
You may want to check. I don't know what's the deal back there, that camera.
You can take this and go film whatever there.
And then I had one bozo tell me, no, you wouldn't, because then they could look up and see the gun. No, they wouldn't. You open the window, you're back from the window, and the barrel's not even out the window. You could get 3 shots up there before coming at you, before they'd even know where the shots are.
You're a Navy SEAL. Do you think Oswald, if he would have been guilty, about that logic?
Yeah, because he was right out of the Marine Corps. He hadn't been out of the Marine Corps in a couple of years.
1959, 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I've been out 30 and I still remember it. Wait a minute. I've been out 30 and I still remember it.
Jesse, you were a Navy SEAL. You've been trained. He was
You're telling me the Marines are not highly trained?
He was highly trained. I was in the Army.
He scored high on his mark pursuit.
Best opportunity available to be successful.
Where are you from? What state?
His best opportunity would be when the car's coming at him. Why would he wait for the car to turn and get all the way down here before he opens fire?
I asked.
We got a lady from
Bernie coming down here. Oswald has more time. If he missed the first shot, he missed. I don't know if it was straight.
No, it couldn't have. No, it couldn't have. People were lining the streets there. All the cars are right behind him. The car would have had to come down the same damn road. He'd have got the same shots anyway. Why wouldn't you take the easier ones? The ones where it's coming at you. Got, as a sniper shooting, you got a shot here where the car is going away from him and dropping. That's the most difficult shot imaginable. With a target that's going down and away from you and dropping?
With a bolt-action rifle.
Come on.
The motorcade route also changed the morning of the motorcade.
The interval of the shots, too.
Shots were on top of each other. So Oswald didn't even know they were going to come down the street.
The point of the matter is, if you're in that window, you're going to take the shot where it comes down the street right at you. Down to the second floor and have a coat.
On his way out. He ran out the front.
You didn't run out, you walked
out the front. I'm sure we said he should have ran out the back. If you're in an incident like that, where everybody's excited, you go out the front and there'll be less potential.
Like I said, he's the coolest customer I've ever seen as a Coke.
This is
It isn't out of breath.
things go better. In 1977, Bill O'Reilly was on Channel 8 Dallas, and he asked to speak to J. Walton Moore because he alleged that Lee Harvey Oswald was employed by the CIA. Now, why did the CIA create all these files? Because O'Reilly asked this question. I don't know either. Maybe O'Reilly will talk about them tonight.
And what's interesting is if here's
No, he was a marksman, which is middle.
Well, he was a sharpshooter.
Marksman's
Marksman's the lowest.
Oh, it's marksman, sharpshooter, expert.
Fired 212.
No, he was marksman. Barely made that.
He fired 212 sharpshooter.
Here's sharpshooter.
Yeah, sharpshooter. Camp Matthews said that right after he
Plus he was eating lunch on the second floor lunchroom.
Well, then he was
the other
second. He
point.
said he was marksman.
Wait a
Marksman,
minute now.
sharpshooter,
Well,
expert.
he
Wait a minute now. You've just
get out.
the seconds after the shooting by a cop and the building manager. You can just blow away the president. The first thing in your mind is to run